Are you actually stuck, or has your mind become a prison? I remember when I was a kid growing up in the Woodlands, Texas, and I want to say I was probably in maybe like the seventh or eighth grade, like definitely, early high school years. And one evening I'd come home from like an extracurricular activity with, my family or my mom or whoever drove me there, and probably my little sister because we did everything together at that age. And as we were going to like enter the house, my, family members, like they went in ahead of me, and it was nighttime and I was standing in my driveway, and it suddenly occurred to me in this like very visceral way, I could just like not go inside my house right now. And it was such a random thought, but like that thought of like, yeah, it's nighttime, whatever, the sun has set. I could just not walk up the driveway and into my house. I could actually just go down the street and keep walking and keep walking and keep walking. And maybe to the average person, that's not a big deal at all. Maybe you grew up in a home where you had a lot of freedom, or you spent a lot of time outside, or you didn't have to update your parents a lot about what you were doing. But for someone like me, growing up the way that I did, that was such a radical thought. Like the idea of just leaving my house, especially at night, without telling anyone where I was, and just going for a walk, like something as simple as that, was hugely radical. And of course, to me, it felt like the obvious answer was like, I can't do that. Like I can't do something like that. But in reality, that's not true, because there was nothing actually stopping me physically from doing exactly that, turning around, not facing my house, and walking away. But because of how I was raised, because of the expectations and the pressures that I was constantly surrounded by, it seemed like the immediate answer was just a complete impossibility. This is a bit of a silly story, but the reason I'm telling you this story today is because I want you to think about aspects of your life where you have an immediate reaction to something that seems like a radical thought that actually isn't radical at all. It's radical to you because your mind has put you in a cage. And of course, maybe you didn't intentionally make that cage, right? I was raised to be a very sheltered person. And due to that, there's kind of a learned helplessness that kind of came with that, and like a lack of personal independence that I, still struggle with even now. But at the end of the day, there has to come a moment where I decide to put that identity down. There has to come a moment where I realize like, hey, like it feels like I'm in a cage, but the bars are literally wide enough for me to just step through. So I have to decide in my head to do so and then take that step. But you have to hear me, right? Like you don't just take the step. It's a decision you make. Everything starts with the mind. Everything starts with thought. And I think that's, kind of the basis of so many of the episodes that we've shared together. Like you see it in literal cartoons for children. It's like you see these cartoon characters and they're put into a cage. And like I said, the bars are literally, wider than the cartoon. Like sometimes you have to just become self-aware and understand that it looks like you are being faced with an obstacle, but ultimately that obstacle is just something that has been created by thoughts placed either in your head by yourself or thoughts placed in your head by the opinions of other people. And only once you're aware of the fact that something is optional, that you are actually opting into believing that you are in a prison, can you then make the choice to unlock the door and step out of that same prison. Because if you aren't aware and you don't think that you are being limited in any way, you can't adjust the limitation that you don't know exists. And so that's why even a story as simple as like, hey, I could literally just walk away from my home right now. That was such a radical thought for a heavily overprotected child like myself. And even separate from that example, I think there's so many ways that society in general will put us in cages and will make us think about our life in a very like specific, linear way that then leads us to believe that we are falling behind, that we are failing in some way, that we are trapped in some way, and that we are not capable of living a life that we truly desire, or that a certain life is completely out of reach because we don't even consider that it's actually possible. And that's why I'm so grateful for social media, because I feel like if it wasn't for social media, literally in my head, there'd probably be like 3 jobs that exist, like doctor, lawyer, no, maybe 4, doctor, lawyer, engineer, banker. Like you know what I mean? Especially like growing up around, I don't know, people that care a lot about education. Like, I feel like I would have such a rigid idea in my head about possible career paths. And I like the fact that people are realizing, like, you can literally get paid for anything in this world if you're confident enough to say, like, hey, I'm good at this thing. I know someone out there would benefit from this thing that I'm good at. Do you want it? And just putting yourself out there. Like, I know one day there will be a way that I'm paid for, like, the stuff I'm even talking to you about right now, that is just like me lying naked in my bed at like 3 a.m., on Boxing Day or whatever, December 27th. There is going to come a day where this will be monetized in some way, even though right now it just feels like a silly thing, right? But also, not everything is about money. But going back to my point around like societal, restraints that people just expect, right? So think about life in general, especially as a woman, if you're a woman out there listening, or even as a man, right? There are social constructs. There are certain constructs that we, adopt and believe. And to even stray from it feels like this radical act, when in reality, like, the fact that you feel like there's a rule you need to adhere to is simply just something that has been repetitively enforced around you, in the world around you, to the point where you've adopted it as fact, when really it was just something that people have been doing for a really long time that we've now decided is normal. So the idea of a nuclear family and like getting married to someone of the opposite gender, obviously assuming gender is binary and there's only man and woman. And so as a woman, maybe you are supposed to get married to a man and, give up your career and, be a stay-at-home mom and be a mom, right? Becoming someone's wife comes with the responsibility of becoming a mother. And now we live in the modern day. It's literally too expensive usually for the average person to even live in a one-income household or whatever. So now it's normal for a woman to work, but, still be a mother, still be in charge of the home, still be the CEO of the home, still put in a lot of domestic invisible labor. These are all just things that are expected of you. And frankly, if you don't have the house by a certain age, if you don't have, or for men, right? They have certain career expectations. Everybody wants to make 6 figures. If you don't have money, then you should feel bad about yourself. You should be in charge. You shouldn't, like, the way your woman behaves around you or in front of others is a reflection of you. So men end up being really controlling towards their partners to make sure that they look like they're wearing the pants. Literally anything I've just said in the past minute, all of that is made up. Like, literally all of that is made up. Like, all of that obviously was derived by some kind of need in the past, but not necessarily does it apply to every single person living in the present. And yet, most people living in the present think that that's like normal. And so the idea of like a non-married woman, a woman that makes her own money, a woman that doesn't want kids, all of these things are considered radical, when in reality, the reason it seems radical at all is because we've decided that there's a rule that we've decided to adhere to. Again, why do I say all of this? So much of what we define our lives around is derived by some level of a cage that someone else placed us in, and that we keep ourselves in by reinforcing it and telling ourselves that we believe it, by telling ourselves that we accept it, by telling ourselves that we must adopt it, that we must adhere to it. And that's not me trying to demean the very real repercussions of going against the things that you have always known. So for me, if I did leave my house that day in the 8th or 9th or whatever grade, probably, 9th grade, I don't know what age I was. But if I did decide that night to just leave my house, walk down the street, not tell anyone, the sun's going down and all of that stuff, even if nothing actually materially happened to me, I know for me that would have been an extremely anxiety-inducing experience. It would have absolutely changed me. I don't know. I can't say, definitively how. It would have absolutely rocked my world, even though it's a very simple act. But ultimately, it would have been very scary. And even separate from my personal example, right? For the women that do decide I don't want kids, for the women that do decide I don't give a shit about being married, especially not to a man, they face the repercussions of that life too, where you're going into offices, people aren't taking you as seriously, people don't think you deserve certain holidays because the people with families should be prioritized because they need to be home with their kids. Maybe your extended family members or your community are constantly relying on you for free babysitting because they assume you have like an excess of time and availability because you don't have children and you don't have a husband. Or maybe it's simply the shame personally that you might feel from seeing all of your friends get engaged too, seeing all of your friends getting married. It starts to make you feel embarrassed that you weren't quote unquote chosen by a man. So are these all very real repercussions of not, swimming with the tide, of swimming against the tide, right? Yes, if you swim against the tide, you might have to paddle a bit harder. But at the same time, I think for most of the people that would be listening to this message right now, you know deep down that your primary repercussion for doing the things that you truly want would be shame from others. And your fear, your excessive reliance on like caring what other people think, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's the primary thing stopping you. Being afraid to be broke, being afraid to not have money, being afraid to switch job roles, being afraid to not live up to people's expectations, being afraid to start over, being afraid to be seen trying. These are the things that stop you from chasing the life that you actually care about. And even on a more fundamental level than that, have you even paused to think about what you actually want for your life? Because like I said, right, a lack of self-awareness will keep you in this prison because you can't open the doors to a cage that you don't know exists. You can't look for a key to open the door to a cage that you don't know that you're in. So if you've never stopped and paused to think, why did I go to college? Why should I go to college? Why am I going to go to college? Why am I going to pursue this particular job? Why do I want to study this particular major? Why am I making certain decisions? Have you ever stopped and paused to think intentionally about your choices? Not just because they're what everyone else is doing, but because they're truly what you want to be doing right now. And consequences be damned. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be some valid excuse you can give yourself for why you're not living the life that you've always wanted. But there's someone else out there with all of your constraints and more who just wants it more than you and who's living it right now. And they were willing to sit through the discomfort. Comfort is making you mediocre. We've already talked about this. They were willing to sit through the discomfort of starting from scratch to get to what they want. And your inability to do so is part of the reason why you're not going to get there. And ultimately, it all starts with you. It all starts with you deciding to say, I want to be intentional. I want to think critically about my choices. I'm not just going to, date this person because all of my friends have boyfriends and I feel left out. I'm not just going to marry this person because all of my friends are getting married now and I feel left out. I'm not just going to take this job because it pays me more money and then I can keep up with my friends and buy a fancier car. I'm going to pause and think, even if it means that I relocate, even if it means I take a pay cut, even if it means that my life gets flipped upside down, if it means I'm pursuing something that means my life will be more fulfilling, I'm willing to do so. Because once you make that decision, there's literally nothing stopping you. And as always, I record these episodes because half the time I needed to say this to myself or I needed that encouragement. And I think from a personal perspective, I'm someone that very much does live this advice that I'm telling you. I do exactly what I want to do. And the second I don't want to do it anymore, then I no longer need to do it. And external pressures, external expectations are not going to stop me from doing what I think is in my best interest. And at the same time helps me best serve the world and the people around me and the organizations that I'm a part of. But at the same time, that also does mean, facing moments in my life where I pause and think people are probably judging me for this, or facing moments where I go out in social settings and I get questioned and people are like, you did that. How did your family feel about this? How did whoever feel about this? And ultimately it's why does that fucking matter? even if they feel a certain way about it, like their thoughts about it aren't in my head. Like I can never read their mind as far as I know. Like I can just pretend they all think it's a wonderful idea and go on about my day. But even separate from decisions that I've already made, I think sometimes I find myself in a place where I'm like, okay, I know I want this thing. And I know it means like starting maybe from rock bottom or just like literally turning my life upside down. And like I said earlier, there's a learned helplessness that comes alongside growing up with really strict parents and all of that kind of thing. And I know there are people out there who have strict parents and they broke free by just doing whatever they wanted or lying or whatever that was. And I just didn't go through that phase as a child. And so the consequence of that was, struggling to feel comfortable being independent, having a lot of anxiety around being in certain spaces. And frankly, all of that really frustrates me. And I think today I was just having another one of those aha moments of like, at the end of the day, I'm part of the problem. I'm reinforcing this script in my head around feeling helpless. I'm reinforcing this script in my head around feeling like, I need to, not necessarily need to rely on other people's support, because I have like obviously supported myself in the past. But separate from that, just feeling like if I put myself out there in a certain way, that I have so much to fear. And I think I need to stop thinking about all the things that are scary and think about all the things I have to gain. And at the end of the day as well, I think I also have a habit of, making these plans and then genuinely, trying to take the step. And then because it makes family members anxious or whoever upset, then suddenly I want to pull back. And if you're facing any of that too, where your decisions you feel are being hindered by other people, just remember, like, you are your own person and you're going to be the one that eventually grows old and has to look back on your life and think, I gave X, Y, and Z up because of this. Or maybe you won't even remember why anymore. All you'll remember is the fact that there was something you desperately wanted to do and you didn't do it. And this is not me encouraging you to be reckless. It's just me encouraging you to reflect, frankly, to lie down and be introspective and take a few minutes in the quiet and think about what you want for your life. Think about what, if you were lying on your deathbed, you'd want to know that you did. Think about something that would make you feel proud of yourself, and not just from like a literal achievement standpoint or whatever, and just like crossing the box off of things, but from a fulfillment standpoint of, I'm living a life where even the small moments give me reason to, praise God, give me reasons to feel genuinely grateful. And I feel like my current life is 90% of the way there, where generally speaking, I'm a very grateful person. So it's easy for me to find joy anywhere, but I want to push myself to go that extra 10% and close the gap on those things about myself that I wish I could improve. And one of those things, as we've discovered from this episode, is taking a leap of faith where my only backup plan is me, and being comfortable knowing that I can get through it. So, anyways, these are my thoughts for today. As always, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Welcome to Live Lumani, Thinking Out Loud. My name is Obie, and I'm here pretty much every week, frankly, even more frequently than every week, because I record these quite often and then I have to tell myself not to just post them all at once. So if you want to keep hearing from me, make sure you guys hit that follow button and maybe turn on notifications so you get notified whenever I post. I know I do all the talking here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the topics I've posted about so far. And if you have ideas about what you want to hear next, let me know in the comment section. If anything I said resonated, please let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. And if you ever want to reach me without, having to publicly comment, check out my site, livelumani.com/connect. And that's where you can sign up for my weekly letters. And you can also, reach me, shoot me a note, introduce yourself, because I really want this to be a community where all of our thoughts are valued, not just mine. I also recently started a Substack, so you can follow me on there. My Social media handles are all at Live Lumani, LIVELUMANI. So you can find me on Substack, you can find me on other social medias, and I will be posting letters on there as well. If you don't want to just get them straight to your inbox, you can get them on Substack. But yeah, that's all for me. What's holding you back? Is it something real, or is it more figment of your imagination vibes? Because you should probably shake your hand off of that ghost and get going. Love you. Bye.